So moving away from pollution and back to the notion of climate itself, we know that under the sort of modern predictions for a world of late this century, we will have a world that's very much warmer than currently. And this is potentially a big problem because these small changes in temperature of a few degrees can be amplified regionally, and they can be amplified by other processes. So what drives this particular change? So the change is driven firstly by the gases, carbon dioxide, methane and the nitrous oxides. And these gases essentially blanket the Earth. They stop the outgoing radiation so the Earth becomes warmer. We can see in the graph of the carbon dioxide concentrations measured at Mauna Loa on the Hawaiian Islands. We can see this gradual growth over many years. And we can also see in this graph, we can see there's a small seasonal change because obviously in the growing season, we're going to expect more carbon dioxide to be absorbed by plants, and overlain on top of this will be the human emissions that cause the gradual increase in carbon dioxide. The only thing that human activity does that lowers temperatures at the moment is the production of particles. Some particles are very reflective, and so what they do is they reflect sunlight and they effectively cool the Earth. But that's not true of all the particles we emit. Some particles we emit actually absorb incoming solar radiation and actually make the atmosphere warmer. The end result of these blanketing processes that warm the Earth by stopping the outgoing radiation are that we have more warm years now than we had in the past. In this graph you can see recent decades where that most of the really warm decades have occurred quite recently, suggesting a global warming. Can we really trust models? Do they really work? Well, what you see here on the right of the diagram is a case where we've not added human activity, we've only added natural forcing such as volcanoes or changes in the sun's output. And it's not a good agreement with the temperatures that we actually measure. But if we look at the right-hand bottom graph where we add in the human activities, the human emissions of greenhouse gases, then we get a much better agreement. So it does seem as if the models give a reasonable account of reality. The trouble is this account has become so well accepted now that we almost have oversimplified it. And so many people say, oh, well, we'll get a warmer, wetter, windier future. But of course, that's really probably not thinking carefully enough about it. What do we really mean by wetter and so on? So we have to think about those things and refine that definition to some extent. So different parts of the world will be warmed differently, and the polar regions are likely to warm much more than the temperate or tropical regions of the Earth. It may be we'll see a 6-degree warming at the poles. And these rapid changes will do all sorts of things that they will reveal archaeology that was long lost and covered by snow. These changes are amplified because as it gets warmer, the snow will melt, the surface will become darker, the surface of the Earth will absorb more incoming solar radiation and thus become warmer. Sea ice will melt, and so the sea will be dark and that will absorb radiation and so on. The exposure of archaeology in these regions is really very important because not only is there increased runoff and temperatures from the surface, this leads to an exposure of this lost archaeology. So there may be positive and negative things, but of course once the archaeology is exposed, it's potentially lost, particularly if it's been frozen for some time and protected by being frozen. And there are more subtle changes we can imagine. For example, on Svalbard, the island above Norway in the Arctic, an island which has had a tradition of mining coal, for example. There's lots of old coal mining, railway structures, engines, and wagons, and these are made of metal, and for many decades they showed no sign of deterioration. But in an Arctic that's getting warmer, these metal surfaces now spend a lot of time above 0 degrees. So what it means is, instead of being ice on the surface of these wagons and train engines, there is now liquid water film, and that's allowing rusting to take place in engines and wagons that were kept in pristine condition for many, many years.